Year into this pandemic journey, I'm extremely thankful for those who have been committed to leadership in our local community, in our congregation, and in the wider Unitarian Universalist community. So I want to start by saying thank you to those who have led us through these strange and trying times and somehow managed to keep us learning, growing, loving, and serving together. To our board president, Colleen Apple, all of our board members, past and present, committee chairs, members, and volunteers, and to those of you who show up here consistently, thank you for your deep commitment to this congregation and to our values. Earlier this week, UUA President Reverend Susan Frederick Gray shared a message of encouragement and hope, marking 1 year of pandemic time in the life of the church. With thanksgiving for her commitment as well as her strong and courageous leadership in this time, I'd like to share her message with you today, and then I'll share my remarks afterward.
Dear ones, this week marks the 1-year anniversary when nearly all of our congregations moved to virtual operations. Anniversaries, particularly of tragic or traumatic events, impact us whether or not we consciously acknowledge them. I'm reminded of the words of Unitarian Universalist minister Max Coots, who writes, "When holidays and holy days and such times come, when anniversaries arrive by calendar or consciousness, when seasons come as seasons do, old and known but somehow new, mark the time." And so it matters that we mark this time, the anniversary of a year like no other. So much grief, so many dear loved ones who've died, so much tragedy on a scale it is hard to comprehend. Anniversaries invite us to remember, and in a year like that, that is a heavy reality. If you are feeling fragile, grieving, depressed, forgetful, or just plain exhausted, know that you are not alone, that this is normal. It matters that we reach out when we are in need. It also matters that we give ourselves time to feel, to just be present to your emotions, to the grief and the loss. Be compassionate and gentle with yourself and with others. We are all mourning the collective trauma of this year, even as we still experience it, even as we still live with distance from loved ones, isolation, health risks, and unbelievable stress. As we mark this anniversary, we also remember all the ways that we have continued to say yes to our values, to one another, to life. Many of you have been on the front lines of the crises this year as doctors and nurses and essential workers, as chaplains and caregivers and pastors, as first responders, as religious educators and teachers, as organizers and community leaders, as artists and musicians, as loved ones and family. All saying yes to help people survive, to defend lives, to care for our children and young people, to bring reminders of beauty and grace to sustain us, to be present to those in their dying moments and to their loved ones in saying goodbye. So many of you and your communities as a whole have done so much to nurture life in this time of incredible loss, and it takes its toll. I pray that you may have moments of rest and love to renew your spirit. May you be held in the same grace and generosity in which you give. It is my hope that as we mark this anniversary, we will remember and acknowledge the sorrows and that we will also acknowledge the things that we have learned about ourselves and about our faith. We learned more deeply what it means to center collective care and compassion in our ministries. We learned to more fully recognize our interdependence and prioritize the needs of those most vulnerable within and beyond our communities. We've extended our ministries beyond any walls, caring for our neighbors and wider communities and providing unprecedented access to our ministries online. We've opened our buildings to serve the community and save lives, to support the organizing and uprisings for racial justice. We've organized food pantries, first aid resources, homeless shelters, and distributed essential goods. We've leaned into our deep commitment to democracy, helping millions exercise their right to vote and playing a critical role in what was the largest, most accessible, and transparent election in U.S. history. We leaned into relationship across our congregations and wider association, partnering and sharing ministry like never before. We've been generous, innovative, courageous, imaginative, and loving at a time when that has been needed most. It is my greatest hope that this will have a lasting impact on our lives and our ministries. And while we have much to be proud of, many of us continue to experience real harm from this pandemic. Long-lasting illness, risks to our health, economic hardship, isolation, and grief. As we follow the hopeful developments, with greater numbers of people being vaccinated and the infection rates declining, now plateauing, may we remember to remain steadfast in our commitment to supporting the well-being of all people. And this means making decisions that reduce community spread. I know we are tired and grieving and long to be together. That day is coming. But it matters that we continue to follow the science and make decisions to support public health. As we mark this 1-year anniversary, so many things in our lives have changed. May we continue to lean more deeply into compassion and care. For these remind us that we are not alone. And they are practices that strengthen our sense of mutuality and belonging, our interdependence. And there are no more important practices or culture to develop in this time. May we continue to hold in love and care all of those who are suffering in this time. May we continue to be gentle with ourselves and our others, make room for our grief and what we are experiencing. And may each of us continue to be nurtured and supported by this faith and our communities that we hold so dear. Much love to all of you and many blessings.
I am so thankful today for this message of encouragement from Reverend Frederick Gray. It was a powerful reminder of all the ways that we have, as she put it, continued to say yes to our values and to one another in the past year, and the ways that we are called to keep saying yes. This morning, I had hoped to speak to you from the lower level of our church building, but the internet down there didn't cooperate. I wanted you to see the cots behind me in the place where we have provided at least one night of shelter for 184 of our unhoused neighbors. Some of those guests were with us for only one night and others for as many as 30 nights. It's been a great source of pride to be able to say in our community that we are one of the churches that committed our building, our resources, our time, and our volunteers to such an important purpose. But even more than that, it's been an honor to be invited into the lives of all these guests in the midst of their struggle to survive, to be safe, and to be seen as human beings with their own inherent worth and dignity. I could recount for hours some of the wonderful conversations I've had in these 3 months with guests in our building. Some challenging, some enlightening, and all incredibly moving. Reverend Frederick Gray said, "May you be held in the same grace and generosity in which you give." And that has been my experience. That generosity and grace extended returns to us in so many ways. One of those graces is that after listening to the stories of our shelter guests, I was able to speak with greater clarity when invited by Springfield Tenants Unite to speak at their rally addressing housing insecurity in our city. I was reminded of how intricately tied so many unjust systems are and the very real ways that they manifest in people's lives. And not just people somewhere out there, but people that we know, people that are a part of our church community, and people who have slept on the cots in our church. As I've thought about what it means to be a people of commitment, and particularly to be committed to serve, I came across some of my favorite quotes this week. You all know I love St. Francis of Assisi, who says in his prayer, "For it is in giving that we receive." Tolstoy says, "The sole meaning of life is to serve humanity." And Winston Churchill, "We make a living by what we get. We make a life by what we give." Jenny Santee asks in a Time magazine article whether there is something deeper beyond the truism, "It is better to give than to receive." And answering her own question, she writes, "The resounding answer is yes. Scientific research provides compelling data to support the anecdotal evidence that giving is a powerful pathway to personal growth and lasting happiness. Through fMRI technology, we know that giving activates the same parts of the brain that are stimulated by food and sex. Experiments show evidence that altruism is hardwired in the brain, and it's pleasurable. Helping others may just be the secret to living a life that is not only happier, but also healthier, wealthier, more productive, and more meaningful." Science has shown that serving others has many benefits in the life of the one that you are serving, but also benefits in your own life. And you can find lots of these lists of benefits, but most of them include these 6 things. Serving others may decrease the frequency and intensity of depressive episodes. Serving others gives a sense of purpose and teach valuable skills. Serving others helps people stay physically and mentally active. It helps reduce stress levels, may help you live longer. And serving others helps you meet new people and develop new relationships. And so for ourselves and for those we serve, I hope that we will continue to recognize the deep value of serving one another. We might think of it as sustaining the tree of life, like AJ shared earlier in our service. We are indeed keepers of the tree of life, because this is where we are nourished and where some of our most precious memories are, and also where we remember who we want to become. When you care for the tree of life, it becomes about so much more than just you. As you use, a commitment to serve seems to be in our collective DNA. The flaming chalice is the most common symbol of the UU faith. The chalice or cup represents the act of giving a healing drink to others. And the flame on top represents a spirit of helpfulness and sacrifice. I am proud to be a part of this tradition that holds serving others at its core. Before I close today, I want to take a moment to thank all of you for the commitments that you've made to serve throughout your lifetime. Earlier this month, the Peace Corps celebrated its 60th anniversary. Having been commissioned into service March 1st, 1961, I've heard so many wonderful stories from people in this congregation about their time in the Peace Corps and how their lives were deeply impacted by that time of service. So for those of you who have served in that way, thank you for your service. I hope you'll consider sharing some of your stories in the breakout rooms today. To those of you who have served in other public service professions and volunteer roles, making life better and more sustainable for the rest of us, thank you for your service. To our teachers, school administrators, and other staff that tend to the education and care of our children and young adults, selflessly giving more than you will ever be paid for. Thank you for your service. To those who have served in branches of the military by draft or volunteer, with all the complexity that military service brings, thank you for your service. To our healthcare heroes and other essential workers who have carried us through the difficulty of this past year, we are so grateful, and we commit to tending to you and your needs in the aftermath of this crisis. Thank you for your service. To anyone who has given of yourself, putting someone else's immediate needs before your own, anyone who centers a greater good rather than always focusing on individual status, thank you for your grace and generosity. I'll close with these words from Rebecca Parker called Choose to Bless the World. Your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. The mind's power, the strength of the hands, the reaches of the heart, the gift of speaking, listening, imagining, seeing, waiting. Any of these can serve to feed the hungry, bind up wounds, welcome the stranger, praise what is sacred, do the work of justice, or offer love. Any of these can draw down the prison door, hoard bread, abandon the poor, obscure what is holy, comply with injustice, or withhold love. You must answer this question: what will you do with your gifts? Choose to bless the world. The choice to bless the world is more than an act of will, a moving forward into the world with the intention to do good. It is an act of recognition, a confession of surprise, a grateful acknowledgement that in the midst of a broken world, unspeakable beauty, grace, and mystery abide. There is an embrace of kindness that encompasses all life, even yours. And while there is injustice, anesthetization, or evil, there moves a holy disturbance, a benevolent rage, a revolutionary love, protesting, urging, insisting that which is sacred will not be defiled. Those who bless the world live their life as a gesture of thanks for this beauty and this rage. The choice to bless the world can take you into solitude to search for the sources of power and grace, native wisdom, healing, and liberation. More, the choice will draw you into community, the endeavor shared, the heritage passed on, the companionship of struggle, the importance of keeping faith, the life of ritual and praise, the comfort of human relationship, the company of earth, the chorus of life welcoming you. None of us alone can save the world. Together, that is another possibility waiting. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen.